Slouser here, and today I will be talking about, well, infantry. That's what I'm best for. And the question is, are infantry worth it? So instead of just being in my city, I'm going to put some Celestial Battleground, so something's in the background while I talk about this question. Now I know the question may sound a bit random, are infantry worth it? But what I'm trying to say is, are they worth being your main march out of cavalry, mage, archers and infantry? Oh, and flyers, but then that's one of the others anyway. So the reason why I came up with this topic was I've played now for 2 full seasons. Well, we're about to end the season 2 plus. So it got me thinking, was it worth that I went for infantry? Now, in short answer, in my opinion, this may shock you, but no, I don't think it's worth it. Unless you're a whale or a high spender, because then you can afford to do multiple marches. And I would think infantry as a secondary march is a solid choice. Or if you're like me, who just loves being the tank, no matter what game I play, League of Legends, fighters, like multiverses, I used to pick Superman, self-explanatory. Usually, whatever game I play, I like to be that tanky character. I want to be the player who absorbs all the attack, let the players focus on me so my team can then swoop in and kill them. You have your place. I've always liked that. I like to have my moment to shine. Not saying damage players don't, but when you're surrounded with 100 damage players and then there's only like 5 tanks, it's easier for you to shine in that moment. You feel like you're a big part of the team rather than just a number. So why am I saying it's not worth it? The biggest reason from doing these 2 seasons was that it doesn't feel like you get rewarded for being a tank. Everything is so much harder being a tank. For example, when it comes to Roots of War, most of your points come from fighting. Tanks barely do damage. I did a video on how I got 10k points on Roots of War, and most of it was because of rallies. Joining with my cavalries or mage rallies and getting points there. And of course my infantry will get some, but I've been in fights and I'm just like, how did that only give me 300 points? And I'll be fighting 5 to 10 marches. Another one is Behemoths. They don't reward people for receiving damage. They show you the most damage dealt and the most damage received, but they only reward who have done the most damage. In my opinion, I think they should do it for both, because tanks are just as important in the raids. Without them, most of the time you fail, because you need their taunt, so they get taunt and get hit. I was thinking about this, and that you could easily break the system by, if you're a strong player, you could just go in front and then you'll just tank the hits, even if you're like mage or something, if you're T5. But there needs to be a way how maybe it's only from normal attacks, not skill attacks, because then skill attacks, when they do the AoE, loads of people get attacked. So maybe from just normal hits, usually done from taunt. So you taunt the behemoth, they hit you a few times and then they do their own thing. Maybe something like that, but I do feel like in this game they do need to give some extra points for tanking, because it just feels like every event in this game is just so much harder as an infantry. Even the Celestial Battleground, you want to kill the Darklings as quick as possible. Same with the Trowel of Light, again, you want to kill as quick as possible for more points. And with infantry, them being slow and doing less damage, it doesn't really help. That is one of the reasons, but I think that's the biggest reason. They just don't get enough back. So as a low spender, free to play or mid spender, unless you're like me where I said I've always liked the idea of being a tank player, if it's more just like, will a tank be interesting to be, and you don't really care which role you play in the game, then I definitely would recommend something else. I was gonna do a video on this, and I will in the future, that I'm gonna go through each unit type and then kind of give my pros and cons and who's the best and who's the worst unit. So I'm not gonna go too much into that now. I'm just gonna do a little idea. Low spenders to free to play, I would recommend Mage, purely because they've got the most range, so you can attack from far and then you can retreat and take the least amount of damage, as long as you play correctly, you know, going into cities and just trying to prevent getting hit as much. For mid spenders and possibly low spenders, you can really decide between Mage or Marksman. That's who I was going to say. But mid spenders, I definitely would recommend Marksman, because they do the most damage from range, and even in raids, most of the time when you're doing an elite, Mage don't help, because they usually have like, they only do 30% damage, or they have a negative. So Marksmen do more damage than Mage, obviously less range, and they do better in events. And if you're a high spender to Will, I mean, really, it depends on how you want to play. If you want to be the guy who just goes around picking off opponents, if it's farms or just you see a random march, you go for cavalry. If you want to do the most damage in wars and events, Marksman. And Mage is just, to be fair, is very good AoE. That's like surrounded, so if you're on a bridge or a small area, boom, you can do so much damage. So it really is up to you. Now, reason number 2. The most common unit type in this game is mage, because as I mentioned, free to play and low spenders can thrive off them, but then they're also very good for mid and high spenders because of the AoE. And who are infantry weak against? Mage. So it doesn't help that the most used unit type goes well against infantry, meaning in wars you're going to take a lot of damage very quickly, especially that Valine and Walline both have slow. So their infantry are already slow enough. So getting even slower to reach them, and then if they're moving backwards, it's very hard tactic when you're getting shot from far, and as you're getting closer, they run back, and you're like, oh well, now I have to go back to where I was before, and then they'll just shoot you again, and so on. You basically just have to either rely on the counter damage or just take the hit. So unless you have a very strong march, if it's your T4 and then you're in a server where they still have mainly T3, or if you're T5 and then mainly T4s, or if you, like me, who have T4 but 2 awakened heroes, Madeline and Garwood, the best tanks in the game, you'll last much longer in battle. But again, that's because I've purely focused on them. I love the idea of being the strongest tank. Of course, I know I'm not, because there's T5 players, but you remove the T5 players, I'm confident I'm the strongest tank in the game, because my research is all on infantry. My heroes are all infantry. I'm an infantry fanatic. Now, reason number 3, which kind of goes hand in hand with reason number 2, because you're the tank, you're the person who's gonna have to be on the front lines. So you're gonna have to take the hits, meaning your hospital will be full. I can go into battle with 0 units in the hospital. Within the next 20 minutes, I'll have like 300k. It's crazy, it can go so fast. So you need to be prepared. If you're gonna go as infantry, you're either gonna have to make a lot of infantry units or just save up elixir. Whenever there's an event which does training troops, only ever use it on infantry. I don't even have 200k on any other unit type, but I've got nearly 800k on infantry. I've just purely focused on them because I'm always send one march, die, another, and then another, and so on. I don't want to run out of infantry, but that's how fast they go, because you're always on that front line. You have to be the one who takes the hits. You can't go in and then be like, all right, let me let some other players go first. You're a tank for a reason. So be prepared to either battle for one day and then be out for the next 2 because your hospital needs to heal, or have a lot of resources so you can also resource heal. And now the last reason. Reason number 4, it's not the worst because I'm happy with what I've got, but they could do more. It's the heroes. Yes, they've just released another 2, and I'm not going to get too much into it because then I want to do another video separate to this where I'm going to rank each infantry hero from the worst to the best. So I don't want to kind of give away too much in this video, but in my opinion, in short, they aren't that good, but they will thrive with high spenders and whales. But I'm gonna explain that in that video whenever I do it. Don't get me wrong, they're better than Nika and obviously Bakar and Eliana. I know Eliana is technically not an infantry hero, but I class her 100% as infantry because he's so tanky. But they are definitely not on the levels of Madeline and Garwood. And that's why I said I'm happy with what I got, because I've got the 2 best infantry heroes, so I'm set for a long time. But that's the thing, I have to set with them for a very long time, because they've just released the 2 new heroes. When's the next 2 heroes for infantry? It could be 6 months, 8 months, I don't know. So you don't have the craziest selection, and Bakar is honestly so underwhelming. You look at flyers, Craig, solid epic hero. Walline, I hope I'm saying it right. I think he's considered the best epic hero. And even Gwen, the elf epic hero, she's solid as well. Those guys have good epic heroes for, you know, the low spenders and free to plays, but infantry don't. So you kind of either have to just have a 5-1-1-1 legendary, or you're gonna have to play with Eliana and Bakar. And again, Bakar, honestly, I think he sucks. So I would never recommend him. I would always do Eliana and a 5-1-1-1 Madeline or Garwood. But again, I will explain why the 2 new heroes I don't think are that good, especially for mid spenders and low spenders and free to plays. I'll explain why I don't think Nika's that good of a hero, and why I think Bakar is absolutely trash. That will be in my infantry ranking guide, I guess you could say. Those are my 4 reasons why I believe infantry aren't worth it. Not right now anyway. Maybe when they bring out new factions, and one of those factions will be like extra infantry defense or HP, or they bring out new epic heroes who are actually good for infantry, or, which I very, very doubt it, they give some sort of boost or change to infantry, maybe more movement speed. because that would help. Even though they're actually faster than mage, they just feel slow, and you still have to get to that distance. It's just hard for infantry to get to mage. They just take so much damage and get slowed by the time they get to them, and then the mage just runs off, so you're just taking a bunch of damage and can't do anything back. So they need to do some stuff for infantry if they want to make them more viable. But look, don't get me wrong, infantry are still very important. You need tanks in this game, you do. You need those marches on the front line to absorb the hits if it's a bridge. Even if it's an open battlefield and you see you got some mages behind you, you want to protect them. If cavalry or whoever's coming towards them, you want to be protecting your mage and your marksman. So this video isn't saying, nah, forget infantry, remove them from the game, no one picked them. No. But what I'm saying is, for majority of players, is there's better unit types. But there'll always be someone like me who just love their infantry, or they love being a tank player and being able to absorb the hits. That's why we'll always have tanks in the game. People like that style. But for the players who don't know and they don't really mind if they're attacking, defense, or speed, or whatever, I would not recommend infantry. As I said in the beginning of this video, it's for either high spenders in Wales or for people who truly like being that tank type player. But that's it. I've said everything, and I hope you've learned something about infantry and what the negatives are about them. I will say one positive about them. I love the feeling when you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 marches all shooting at you and you're able to absorb that damage. You feel gassed, especially when your team's attacking them from behind, but they're still focusing on you because they want to kill you. It's honestly a solid feeling. It's happened so many times in my war videos. It's a sick feeling. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. I would appreciate it. And if you are new to my channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button to be up to date with all my Call of Dragons content, or to be updated when I live stream. I hope you've learned something, and until the next Call of Dragons video, catch you later. Slaughter is out.